reduced imports for the SGR, also because of reduced imports from food relative to last year. Remember, last year was a drought year, and also the decline in oil imports that we are now seeing.
All right, Kenya has dropped 1 point in the Global Corruption Perceptions Index for 2018, released by the Transparency International today. This is despite a seemingly spirited effort to curb corruption. Kenya is at position 144th out of 180 countries surveyed. Now, the Corruption Perception Index, which ranks 180 countries and territories by their perceived levels of public sector corruption, according to the experts and business people, uses a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is highly corrupt and 100 is very clean. Now, Kenya scored 27 out of 100. More than two-thirds of countries scored below 50 on this year's CPI. That's the Corruption Perception Index, with an average score of just 43. But some of Kenya's neighbors have done better, including Rwanda and Ethiopia. Others lagging behind are Uganda, South Sudan and Somalia. While there are exceptions, the data shows that despite some progress, most countries are failing to make serious inroads against corruption. All right, as a follow-up, we now bring in Sheila Messina, the program's manager at Transparency International. She's joining us by way of phone. Sheila, good afternoon. Why has Kenya dropped, yet there seems to be a renewed war against graft?
Good afternoon, Jesse. Yes, Kenya, as you have reported, has dropped in the last year in terms of the corruption perceptions, as you rightly said. We have been ranked 144 out of 180 countries and territories, and we're actually falling below the global average of 43 out of 100 and 32 in sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, 0 being perceived to be highly corrupt and 100 being very clean. I know that currently Kenyans have been looking forward because there have been all these efforts towards fighting corruption. There have been high-level prosecutions and investigations that have been ongoing. But also you need to realize that it's not just about the investigations and prosecutions. What is the result of all this? You know, until we see people being convicted and being punished for corruption, and until we see Kenyans being able to reclaim and recover the assets that have been lost, we can't really say that we're making good headway in the fight against corruption. I think, yes, we're moving in the right direction towards, investigating the big fish kind of cases and seeing them in court, but we have to see the results of all those processes. And also, as TI, we believe that effective anti-corruption efforts are premised on 3 key pillars. That is, 1, political will, secondly, effective institutions, and then an engaged citizenry. And while in the last year we have seen the executive, led by none less than the president, speaking very strongly against corruption, with the results that we have now, scoring just 27 out of 100, which is not much different from what we scored last year. Last year were 28. The previous year were 26. And I think in the last 5 years, we have been oscillating between 25 and 28. That just tells you that there's no real progress. But we really need to look at some of the commitments that we have made and translate them to action. And the commitments have been many. But what we need to see is real action. And then also considering, I think one of the other key challenges is some of the key institutions in the anti-corruption chain have faced significant challenges in terms of delivering their mandates, mainly because of the pervading culture of impunity that we see in Kenya among the political and economic elite. And also some of the institutions which are supposed to be responsible and to lead the fight against corruption face various budgetary deficits that really affect optimal performance by them. So what we need to see really is more political goodwill and leadership, and which will be able to mobilize, again, also citizen participation and support towards this really humongous fight against corruption that we face. And we must address weaknesses in the key pillars that will drive the fight against corruption, that is political will, having effective institutions and citizens who are engaged for us to be able to turn the tide against corruption.
All right, many thanks. That is Sheila Messina of Transparency International Kenya Programs Manager. Just